Did you just kick me in the balls? The question hung in the air of the most expensive restaurant in downtown Seattle, where men in $1,000 suits and women dripping in diamonds had gone completely silent. Every head turned toward Table 7, where the most feared man in the Pacific Northwest was doubled over, clutching himself, his face twisted in shock and pain. Let me tell you something about justice. Real justice isn't polite. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't apologize for existing. Sometimes justice wears a stained apron and broken shoes, and sometimes it comes in the form of a size 7 foot connecting with the anatomy of a man who thought he was untouchable. Sometimes the universe doesn't just balance the scales. It kicks them over completely. My name is Amelia Oliver, and before you ask, yes, I actually did that. I kicked Kong Miho, head of the Kong crime family, heir to a criminal empire that stretched from Vancouver to San Diego, directly in the testicles in front of 73 witnesses for security cameras and his 12 bodyguards. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because the woman who did that, the woman who became a legend whispered about in back alleys and boardrooms alike, she didn't exist 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I was just trying to survive. Before we dive in, hey, how are you all doing today? I hope wherever you're watching this from, you're comfortable, maybe with some coffee or tea, because this story, it's going to take you on a ride. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. Is it raining where you are? Sunny? Cold? I love hearing from you all. Now, if you're enjoying this already, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who needs to hear a story about standing up when the whole world tells you to stay down. Trust me, you're going to want to follow this journey all the way through. But let me start from the beginning, from the version of me that existed before everything changed. I was 26 years old when this story begins, and I genuinely believed that hard work and education were enough. I believed that if you did everything right, studied hard, earned your degrees, followed the rules, life would reward you. I believed that good things happened to good people. I believed that respect was something you earned through merit, through kindness, through proving your worth with patience and dedication. I believed the world was fair. God, I was so naive. I had a master's degree in applied linguistics from the University of Washington, with a specialization in East Asian languages. I spoke 7 languages fluently: Korean, Mandarin, Japanese, Spanish, French, Russian, and English. I graduated with honors. I'd had offers from translation agencies, from tech companies needing international liaisons, from government contractors. But my mother had cancer, stage 3 breast cancer, and my father had died 2 years earlier from a heart attack, leaving behind medical debt that had consumed everything my parents had spent their lives building. The hospital bills came in waves. Insurance covered some of it, but not enough. Never enough. Treatment after treatment, surgery after surgery, the numbers kept climbing. $147,000. That's what I owed when the collection agencies started calling. That's what stood between my mother's life and giving up. So, I took the first job I could get that paid cash tips. Romano's was hiring servers. The base pay was terrible, but the clientele was wealthy. I told myself it was temporary. Just until I got ahead of the debt. Just until my mother finished treatment. Just until I could breathe again. I'd been working there for 4 months when Kong Miho walked through the door. Everyone knew who he was. You didn't live in Seattle and not know the Kong name. Miho's father had come to Ameliarica 30 years ago with nothing but ambition and a willingness to do what others wouldn't. He'd built an empire in the shadows, controlling everything from underground gambling to protection rackets, smuggling operations to legitimate real estate holdings. And when the old man died, Miho had inherited it all at 28 years old. Now at 32, he'd expanded the family business into something that existed in the gray space between legal and illegal, between business and crime. He owned restaurants, nightclubs, import companies. He had connections that reached back to Seoul and stretched across every major city on the West Coast. And he had a reputation for explosive violence that made grown men look away when he entered a room. The restaurant manager, Gerald, had pulled all the servers aside that evening before service started. His hands were shaking. Kong Miho has a reservation tonight. Table 7. I don't care if he sets the tablecloth on fire, you smile and ask if he needs more matches. You don't look at him unless he speaks to you. You don't speak unless spoken to. And you absolutely, under no circumstances, make a mistake. Do you understand? We all nodded. I'd heard stories about Kong, about a business partner who'd tried to cheat him and disappeared without a trace, about a rival gang member who disrespected him and ended up in the hospital for 3 months, about a city councilman who'd voted against one of his permits and suddenly changed his vote after a private meeting. The man was untouchable. The man was dangerous. The man was, according to every news report and police file, completely above the law because he bought the law with cash and threats. I drew the short straw. I got table 7. When Kong Miho walked in at exactly 8 p.m., the entire restaurant shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. Silverware stopped clinking. Even the kitchen noise seemed to drop to a whisper. He was tall for a Korean man, maybe 6 feet, with broad shoulders under an expensive black suit. His hair was perfectly styled, his shoes probably cost more than my monthly rent, and his face was the kind of handsome that would photograph well except for his eyes. His eyes were cold.
Dead.
The eyes of someone who'd seen violence and caused it and lost the ability to feel anything about it. 6 men walked in behind him.
His crew.
His protection. They spread out through the restaurant, taking positions near exits, watching everyone with the kind of attention that made normal people nervous. Miho sat down at table 7 without looking at anyone. He didn't acknowledge Gerald's nervous greeting. He didn't glance at the other diners who were trying very hard to pretend they weren't watching him. He simply sat, pulled out his phone, and waited. I approached with my order pad, my heart pounding. Good evening, sir. Welcome to Romano's. Can I start you with something to drink? He didn't look up from his phone. Champagne. The Cristal. That was $600 a bottle. I wrote it down with a steady hand, even though my fingers wanted to shake. Excellent choice. I'll bring that right out. I went to the wine cellar, hands trembling as I selected the bottle. This was fine. I could do this. Just be professional. Be invisible. Be perfect. Don't mess up. Don't give him any reason to notice you beyond the service. I returned with the bottle in an ice bucket, showing him the label as I'd been trained. He gave it a dismissive glance and waved his hand. I popped the cork smoothly, poured a small amount for him to taste. He sipped it without looking at me, then nodded. I filled his glass, careful and precise, watching the golden liquid rise to exactly the right level. Then I lifted the bottle to return it to the ice bucket. That's when everything went wrong. One of his men shifted position behind me. Startled, I turned slightly. My elbow bumped the edge of the table. The champagne bottle tilted, and half a glass worth of $600 bottle Cristal splashed across the pristine white tablecloth, dropped spattering onto Kong Miho's sleeve. Time stopped. My heart dropped into my stomach. Oh my God.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so incredibly sorry, sir. Let me get you a towel right away. I grabbed my cloth napkin, reaching toward a sleeve, but he pulled his arm back sharply. His face had gone completely still, that dead-eyed stare fixed on me for the first time. I'm so sorry, I repeated, my voice steady despite the panic flooding through me. That was entirely my fault. Please, let me get our manager, and we'll take care of everything. Your meal tonight will be completely complimentary. Gerald appeared like he'd been shot from a cannon, his face pale. Mr. Kong, I'm terribly sorry for this inexcusable error. Please accept our sincerest apologies. We'll comp your entire meal and bring you a fresh bottle immediately. Kong Miho said nothing. He just stared at me with those dead eyes. Please, I said again, bowing slightly, genuinely mortified. I take full responsibility. I'm so sorry for the disruption to your evening. Still nothing. Then slowly, deliberately, Kong Miho reached for his champagne glass. The one I just poured. The one that was still full. And he picked it up and poured the entire thing over my head. The cold liquid soaked through my hair, ran down my face, dripped onto my uniform. I stood frozen, champagne dripping from my chin, my vision blurring from the liquid in my eyes. The entire restaurant gasped. Even his own men looked shocked. Then Kong Miho started speaking in Korean. His voice was low, casual, like he was discussing the weather. But the words that came out of his mouth were poison. Look at this stupid bitch. Can't even pour a drink without making a mess. This is what happens when restaurants hire worthless prostitutes instead of real servers. My entire body went rigid. He continued, still in Korean, his tone conversational, while his words cut like knives. Probably slept her way into this job. Too dumb to do anything else. Look at her just standing there, no brain behind those eyes. Just a pretty face attached to nothing. Worthless. Completely worthless. Around us, people shifted uncomfortably. They didn't understand the words, but they could hear the cruelty in his tone. Gerald looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. And Kong Miho smirked. Actually smirked. Because he thought I didn't understand. He thought he could say anything he wanted in his language, and I would just stand there and take it like the stupid, worthless waitress he thought I was. Something inside me snapped. Not broke. Snapped. Like a rubber band pulled too tight for too long, finally reaching its limit. I wiped the champagne from my eyes. I straightened my spine. And I looked Kong Miho directly in his dead, cruel eyes. Then I spoke in absolutely perfect, accent-free Korean. You arrogant piece of trash. The look on Kong Miho's face was something I'll remember until the day I die. His smirk vanished. His eyes widened. For just a fraction of a second, the feared Mafia boss looked like a child who'd been caught with his hand in the cookie jar. But I wasn't done. Not even close. You walk in here thinking you're some kind of god because you have money and men with guns. I continued in flawless Korean, my voice steady and clear enough for his entire crew to hear. You think you can humiliate people because they serve you food? You think speaking another language makes you invisible? Let me tell you something about invisibility. I have a master's degree in Korean linguistics from one of the top universities in this country. I've spent 6 years studying your language, your culture, your history. I probably speak Korean better than half your crew. So when you call me a stupid bitch and a worthless prostitute, I understand every single syllable. His men had gone completely still. The entire restaurant was silent, everyone staring even though most of them had no idea what I was saying. But they could hear the fury in my voice. They could see Kong Miho's face going pale. I apologized, I said, switching back to English so everyone could understand. Multiple times.
Sincerely.
My manager apologized. We offered to comp your meal, to make this right. But that wasn't enough for you, was it? You needed to humiliate me. You needed to pour champagne on me and call me names in a language you thought I couldn't understand. I took one step closer to his table. His bodyguards tensed, hands moving toward their jackets, but Kong Miho held up one hand to stop them. He was staring at me like he'd never seen another human being before. You want to know what's worthless? I said quietly. A man who needs 12 bodyguards to eat dinner. A man who feels powerful by degrading a waitress. A man so insecure that he has to prove his dominance by pouring alcohol on someone who can't fight back. The words hung in the air. Someone in the back of the restaurant dropped a fork and the sound echoed like a gunshot. Then Kong Miho stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. He was a full 6 inches taller than me. He stepped around the table and moved into my personal space, clearly trying to intimidate me with his size, his presence, his reputation. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me to back down. To apologize.
To run.
This was a man who'd put people in the hospital for less. This was a man who could make me disappear, and no one would ask questions. But I was so tired. Tired of being scared. Tired of being small. Tired of men like him thinking they owned the world and everyone in it. So instead of stepping back, I stepped forward. And I kicked him directly in the balls with every ounce of strength in my body. The sound he made was somewhere between a gasp and a wheeze. His hands flew to his groin. His knees buckled. And Kong Miho, the feared head of the Kong crime family, the man who controlled half the criminal enterprise on the West Coast, crumpled to the floor of Romano's in front of 73 witnesses. For a moment, nobody moved. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Then chaos erupted. His bodyguards rushed forward, guns appearing from shoulder holsters. Gerald screamed. Diners started shouting, some diving under tables, others running for exits. Someone was calling 911. The kitchen staff had appeared at the door, armed with knives and rolling pins. But I just stood there, staring down at Kong Miho as he gasped for air on the floor, and I felt nothing but a strange, cold satisfaction. That, I said quietly in Korean, was for every person you've ever made feel small. Then I turned and walked toward the back exit, fully expecting to be shot in the back before I made it 3 steps. But the shot never came. I made it to the employee break room, grabbed my bag from my locker, and kept walking. Out the back door. Into the alley. Down 3 blocks before my legs started shaking, so hard I had to lean against a building. What had I done? What had I actually done? I'd just assaulted a Mafia boss in front of dozens of witnesses. I'd humiliated him. I'd made him look weak in front of his own men. Men like Kong Miho didn't forgive things like that. Men like him responded to disrespect with violence. I was dead. I had to be dead. It was only a matter of time. My phone started ringing. Gerald. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. Text messages started flooding in. Amelia, where are you? Amelia, you need to come back right now. Amelia, Mr. Kong wants to speak with you. I turned off my phone and started walking. I had maybe $200 in my wallet, a bag with my work clothes, and nowhere to go that would be safe if Kong Miho wanted to find me. I walked for hours through Seattle streets, jumping at every car that slowed down, every person who looked at me twice. By the time I made it to my apartment, a tiny studio in a building that should have been condemned years ago, it was past midnight.
You packed a bag.
Clothes, documents, my laptop, the few things that mattered. Then I sat on my bed and tried to figure out how to disappear. But I couldn't just disappear. My mother was still in treatment. I had payments due. I had a life here, as pathetic as it was.
I turned my phone back on.
47 missed calls. 62 text messages. Most were from Gerald, ranging from panic to anger to fear. 3 were from my mother, asking if I was okay because apparently the incident at Romano's was already on the local news. Someone had filmed it. Of course someone had filmed it. But there was one number I didn't recognize. A text message that had come in an hour ago. We need to talk. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. Pier 57 coffee shop.
Come alone.
If you don't show up, I'll find you anyway. Trust me on that. No name. But I knew exactly who it was from. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over. The champagne soaking my hair. The cruel words in Korean. The satisfying thud of my foot connecting with his body. The look on his face as he fell. I should have been terrified. And part of me was. But another part of me, a part one didn't recognize, felt alive for the first time in years. The next morning, I woke up to my face on the news. Someone had posted the video online, and it had gone viral overnight. Waitress destroys Mafia boss was trending on 3 different platforms. The video had been viewed 2 million times. In the footage, you could see everything. Miho pouring the champagne on me. Him speaking in Korean. My response.
The kick.
Him going down. It was all there, immortalized forever on the internet. The comments were insane. Queen behavior. She's my hero. Somebody give this woman a medal. R.I.P. to this waitress. She's definitely dead by now. That last comment was probably accurate. At 1:45 p.m., I left my apartment. I dressed carefully, nothing flashy, nothing that drew attention. Jeans, a simple jacket, my hair pulled back. If this was the day I died, at least I'd look like myself. Pier 57 was crowded with tourists and street performers. The coffee shop sat at the end, overlooking the water. I spotted Kong Miho immediately. He sat at a corner table, alone, wearing sunglasses despite being indoors. I walked over and sat down across from him, without being invited. He removed his sunglasses, and I saw his eyes. Still cold. Still dangerous. But something else was there too. Something I couldn't quite identify. You came, he said in English. You said you'd find me anyway. I would have. We sat in silence for a moment. Around us, people laughed and chatted, completely unaware that they were having coffee 20 feet away from a man who'd probably killed people. You speak Korean very well, he finally said. I know. Where did you learn? University of Washington. 6 years of intensive study. 1 year abroad in Seoul. I can also discuss classical Korean poetry and the historical context of Hangul development if you're interested. His mouth twitched. It might have been the beginning of a smile. You kicked me. You deserved it. People have died for less. Then I guess I'm already dead. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with those unreadable eyes. Do you know who I am? Really know, I mean, not just the rumors. You're Kong Miho. Your father was Kong Daesung, who built a criminal empire starting in the 1990s. When he died 4 years ago, you took over everything. You run protection rackets, smuggling operations, underground gambling, and you've legitimized some of the business through restaurants and import companies. You're estimated to be worth somewhere between $50 and $200 million, depending on which federal report you believe. You have connections to organized crime in Seoul, Tokyo, and Hong Kong. The police have investigated you 17 times and never made anything stick because you're either very smart or very good at making witnesses disappear. Probably both. He blinked. You did research. I couldn't sleep last night, so I read everything I could find about the man who's probably going to kill me. Seemed prudent. I'm not going to kill you. Why not? I humiliated you in front of your men. I made you look weak. Isn't that exactly the kind of disrespect that gets people hurt in your world? Kong Miho was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something completely unexpected. He laughed. It was short, sharp, like the sound surprised him as much as it surprised me. You're right, he said. That's exactly what should happen. But here's the thing, Amelia Oliver. My blood went cold. He knew my full name. In the 20 years I've been in this business, do you know how many people have stood up to me? Really stood up, I mean. Not backed into a corner with no choice. Not desperate men trying to save their own skin. But actually stood there and told me to my face that I was wrong. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. 0. The answer is 0. Until you. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. Everyone is afraid of me, he continued. Everyone. My own men flinch when I raise my voice. Business partners agree to anything I say. Women smile and laugh at jokes that aren't funny because they're terrified of what might happen if they don't. For 10 years, I've been surrounded by people who treat me like I'm made of glass and explosives at the same time. He picked up his coffee cup, studying it like it held answers. Then you, he said quietly, this waitress drowning in debt, working a job she's overqualified for. You stand there with champagne dripping down your face, and you call me trash. In my own language. In front of everyone. And then you kick me in the balls. I apologized first, I pointed out. Multiple times. You chose cruelty. I did. So, why am I here? Why aren't I at the bottom of Puget Sound right now? Kong Miho set down his coffee cup and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Because I want to offer you a job. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. You want to offer me a job? After I assaulted you?
Because you assaulted me.
Amelia, you have skills I need. You speak 7 languages fluently. You have a master's degree in linguistics. You can handle yourself under pressure. And most importantly, you're not afraid of me. I'm terrified of you. But you kick me anyway. That's the difference. Do you know how valuable that is? Someone who can think clearly even when they're scared. I stared at him. What kind of job are we talking about? I need a translator. An interpreter. Someone who can handle sensitive negotiations with my associates in Korea, Japan, China. Someone who understands cultural nuance. Someone smart enough to catch things that aren't being said directly. You want me to work for the mob. I prefer to think of it as import-export consulting. You're insane. I'm serious. The pay is $200,000 a year, plus benefits, plus a signing bonus of $50,000. My heart stopped. $200,000. That would pay off my mother's medical debt in a year. Maybe less. Why would you pay me that much? Because you're worth it. Because I need someone I can trust to tell me the truth, and everyone else around me is too scared to do that. Because you proved last night that you have integrity. You could have just taken the abuse and walked away. But you didn't. You stood up. That's rare. You poured champagne on me and called me a prostitute. I did. And I'm sorry. The apology caught me completely off guard. Kang Miho looked uncomfortable saying it, like the words were foreign in his mouth. You're sorry, I repeated flatly. I was testing you.
I wanted to see if you understood Korean.
I've been told by someone that Romanos had hired a linguistics graduate, and when I saw your name on the reservation list as my server, I looked you up. Amelia Oliver. Master's degree from UW. Fluent in 7 languages. I wanted to see if it was true. So you decided to humiliate me to find out? I made a mistake. I thought you'd respond in Korean immediately, prove your skills, maybe argue back. I didn't expect you to be professional about it. I didn't expect multiple apologies. And I definitely didn't expect the kick. He rubbed his jaw, looking almost embarrassed. I deserved it, he admitted. Everything you said was true. I was arrogant. I was cruel. I used my power to make you feel small because I could. That's not a man. That's a bully with money. I sat back in my chair, trying to process this. The feared Mafia boss was apologizing, offering me a job, admitting he was wrong. This is insane, I said. Probably. But the offer stands. 200,000 a year.
50,000 signing bonus.
You work as my personal translator and cultural consultant. Legitimate business only. Legitimate business, I repeated skeptically. Mostly legitimate. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. My family's history is complicated. But the work I need you for is real. Contract negotiations. Business meetings. International partnerships. Nothing that would get you arrested. Nothing that would get me arrested is not the same as nothing illegal. No, he agreed. It's not. But I'm offering you a way out of debt. A way to help your mother. A real career using your actual skills instead of serving entitled rich people. He wasn't wrong. The offer was incredible. Suspiciously incredible. What's the catch?
No catch.
You work for me. You're under my protection. No one touches you. No one threatens you. You become part of my organization, which means your family. And I protect family. Why do I need protection? Kang Miho's expression darkened. Because that video from last night has been viewed 6 million times now. Your face is everywhere. Your name is public. And I have enemies who would love to hurt me by hurting someone I'm associated with. If you don't take this job, you're on your own. And trust me, you don't want to be on your own right now. A chill ran down my spine. You're saying I'm in danger because of what I did? I'm saying you became visible. Visibility is dangerous in my world. But if you work for me, you're protected. No one would dare touch you. It felt like a trap. Like he was creating a problem, so he could offer the solution. But looking at his face, I didn't see manipulation. I saw genuine concern. I need to think about it, I said. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires and you're on your own with whatever comes next. He stood up, pulled out his wallet, and left $200 on the table. For the champagne I wasted, he said. And Amelia? Stay alert. The video has caught attention from people who aren't fans of mine. Be careful. Then he walked out, leaving me sitting alone with a cup of cold coffee and a decision that would change my entire life. I went home in a daze. My phone was still blowing up. News outlets wanted interviews. Random people were messaging me on social media calling me brave, stupid, suicidal, a hero, an idiot. The video had been shared on every platform imaginable. My mother called that evening. She'd seen the news. Amelia, sweetheart, are you okay? They're saying you attacked a gangster.
I've seen it, Mom.
It's complicated. Complicated? Baby, you kicked a man on camera. The whole city is talking about it. I know. Mom, I have to ask you something. If I had a chance to make enough money to pay off all the medical bills, would you want me to take it? Even if the job was complicated. There was a long pause. My mother wasn't stupid. She understood what I was really asking. Amelia Teresa Oliver, she said quietly. You are the smartest, bravest person I know. Whatever you decide, I trust you. But I don't want you putting yourself in danger for me. Do you understand? I understand. The debt doesn't matter if you're not here. I know, but the debt did matter. It mattered because it was crushing us both. It mattered because my mother was rationing her pain medication to save money. It mattered because I could barely afford groceries some weeks. That night, I made a list. Pros and cons of working for Kong Miho. Pros: $200,000 a year.
50,000 sickening bonus.
Using my actual degree. Protection from whoever might target me because of the video. A way out of debt. Cons: working for a criminal organization. Potential legal consequences.
Moral implications.
The possibility that I was making a deal with the devil himself. I stared at that list for 3 hours. Then I thought about my mother, about the tired way she smiled when she thought I wasn't looking, about the bills stacked on our kitchen table, about the collection agency calls that woke me up at 7 a.m. every morning. I thought about the last 4 months serving entitled rich people who treated me like furniture, about going home exhausted every night with barely enough tip money to cover bus fare, about my expensive education gathering dust while I asked people if they wanted their steak medium rare or medium well. And I thought about the look on Kong Miho's face when I'd spoken to him in Korean. The surprise. The respect. The way he'd actually listened when I called him out. At 2 a.m., I made my decision. I texted the number he'd messaged me from. I'll take the job, but I have conditions. The response came back in 30 seconds. Name them. 1. I won't do anything illegal. If you ask me to, I walk. 2. You never disrespect me or anyone else in my presence the way you did at the restaurant. 3. If I feel unsafe at any point, I'm done and you leave me alone. 4. I want a signing bonus up front, so I can pay my mother's medical bills immediately. 5. Everything you ask me to do, you explain why.
No blind loyalty.
I need to understand what I'm part of. I hit send and waited, my heart pounding. I was negotiating with a Mafia boss. This was either brave or stupid, and I wasn't sure which. His response took 2 minutes. Agreed to all 5. Welcome to the team, Amelia. Car will pick you up tomorrow at 9 a.m. Wear something professional. You start immediately. I sat on my bed, staring at my phone, wondering what I'd just agreed to. But deep down I knew I'd made a choice. Maybe the wrong choice. Maybe a choice I'd regret. But it was my choice, made with open eyes. I wasn't a helpless waitress anymore. I wasn't invisible. I'd kicked a Mafia boss in the balls and lived to tell about it, and now I was going to work for him. My old life was over. Whatever came next was going to be complicated, dangerous, and probably insane. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just surviving. I fell asleep that night with my mother's medical bills spread across my bed and a text message from a criminal offering me salvation. Sometimes the universe doesn't give you good choices and bad choices. Sometimes it just gives you choices, and you have to pick one and live with it. I'd made mine. The car that picked me up at 9 a.m. wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined something obvious, like a black SUV with tinted windows and men in suits. Instead, it was a sleek silver sedan with a woman behind the wheel. She was maybe 40, with short black hair and a professional pantsuit that screamed executive assistant, not criminal enforcer. Amelia Oliver? She asked when I approached. That's me. I'm Jessica Park. I handle Mr. Kang's legitimate business operations. Please get in. The interior was immaculate. Leather seats, classical music playing softly. Jessica drove with the kind of calm precision that suggested she'd done this route 1,000 times. First day nerves? She asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Is it that obvious? You're gripping your bag like it might fly away. Relax. Mr. Kong doesn't bite. Well, not usually. That didn't help my nerves at all. We drove through downtown Seattle, past the tourist areas and into a neighborhood I barely recognized. Old warehouses that had been converted into upscale offices. Tech startups next to boutique law firms. The gentrification was almost complete here, turning industrial spaces into premium real estate. Jessica pulled up to a building that looked like it had once been a shipping warehouse. Now it had floor-to-ceiling windows on the upper floors, modern architecture mixed with the original brick facade. A sign near the entrance read Kong International Holdings. "This is it," Jessica said. "Fifth floor. Mr. Kong is expecting you." The lobby was professional and clean. A security desk with 2 guards who nodded at Jessica as we passed. Elevators with polished steel doors. Everything looked legitimate, like any other corporate office in the city. But I noticed details. The way the security guards had guns visible at their hips. The cameras covering every angle. The reinforced glass on the windows. This might look like a normal office, but it was fortified like a bunker. The elevator opened on the 5th floor, and I stepped into a space that was half corporate office, half something else entirely. Modern furniture and abstract art on the walls. But also men in expensive suits with the kind of posture that suggested military training. Women working at computers who looked up as I passed, their expressions curious but guarded. Jessica led me down a hallway to a corner office with actual windows overlooking the city. She knocked once, then opened the door. "Mr. Kong, Ms. Oliver is here." Kong Miho stood behind a massive desk, looking at something on his computer. He was dressed differently than at the restaurant. Still expensive, but more business casual. Black pants, a dark gray button-down with his sleeves rolled up. He looked younger somehow, less intimidating without the formal suit and the armed guards. "Thank you, Jessica. That'll be all for now." Jessica left, closing the door behind her. Miho gestured to a chair across from his desk.
"Seat."
"Please." I sat, my bag on my lap like a shield. He studied me for a moment, then reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. He slid it across the desk toward me. "Your signing bonus."
$52,000.
Cash, because I assumed you'd want to handle your mother's bills immediately without waiting for checks to clear. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were neat stacks of $100 bills. More money than I'd ever held in my life. "Thank you," I managed. "You're welcome. Now let's talk about your actual job." He pulled up a chair and sat across from me, not behind the desk. More casual, less boss and employee. "My father built this organization through force and fear," Miho said. "He came to Amelia Rica with nothing, and he did what he had to do to survive and provide for his family. I respect that, but times have changed. I'm trying to legitimize as much of the business as possible. Move away from the old methods and into something sustainable." "Legitimize," I repeated. "But not completely." "No," he admitted. "Not completely. Some operations can't be legitimized without losing everything. But I want to transition the bulk of our income to legal sources. International trade, real estate, import and export businesses. That's where you come in." He pulled out a tablet and showed me a presentation. Professional, well-designed, full of charts and figures. I have partners in Seoul, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. Legitimate businessmen who want to expand into Amelia-Rican markets. They need someone who understands both cultures, who can facilitate negotiations, who can catch the subtle meanings that get lost in pure translation. He swiped to another slide showing a timeline. "Next week, I have representatives from a Korean electronics manufacturer coming to Seattle. They want to set up a distribution partnership. The week after, I'm meeting with investors from Tokyo about a real estate development project. The month after that, I'm flying to Hong Kong for a conference on international shipping logistics." I looked at the presentation, genuinely impressed. This was real business. Complex, high-level negotiations that would require exactly my skill set. "This is what you need me for," I said. "Why didn't you just hire me normally? Post a job listing." "Because normal employees don't understand the context. They don't know who I am, what my family's history is. They'd be terrified or they'd be judgmental. You already know who I am. You've already decided to work with me despite that. And most importantly, you're not afraid to call me out when I'm wrong." He leaned back in his chair. "I need someone who will tell me the truth. In negotiations, in translations, in cultural context. If a business partner is lying to me in Korean, I need you to catch it. If I'm about to make a cultural mistake that will ruin a deal, I need you to tell me.
Can you do that?
Tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable? Especially when it's uncomfortable. I thought about it for a moment, then nodded.
Yes.
I can do that.
Good.
Then, let's get started. The next 3 days were a crash course in Kong Miho's business empire. Jessica showed me the organizational structure. Legitimate companies up top, handling real estate, import-export, restaurants, and nightclubs. Below that, operations that existed in legal gray areas. Protection services that might or might not be extortion. Import businesses that definitely involved smuggling. Gambling operations that weren't quite legal, but weren't quite prosecutable either. I met the key players. David Choi, Miho's second-in-command, who handled day-to-day operations. He was cold, efficient, and looked at me like I was a problem waiting to happen. James Park, the lawyer who kept everything just barely legal. Hannah Kim, who ran the financial operations and could make money disappear and reappear in ways that made my head spin. And then there were the others. The men who didn't have business cards or office doors with their names on them. The ones who handled problems that couldn't be solved with lawyers or accountants. I tried not to think too hard about what that meant. My first real assignment came on day 4. The Korean electronics representatives were arriving that afternoon, and Miho needed me to interpret the meeting. Just translate exactly what they say, he instructed. Don't soften anything. Don't add anything. I need to know exactly what they mean, including subtext. Understood. The meeting took place in a conference room on the 4th floor. 3 men from Seoul, all in their 50s, experienced businessmen who'd clearly done this kind of negotiation many times before. They were polite, professional, and completely underestimated Miho because of his age. I could hear it in their Korean. The subtle condescension when they spoke to him. The way they phrased things to suggest he was inexperienced, that he needed their guidance. Miho noticed too, even before I translated. He might not speak fluent Korean, but he understood tone. What are they really saying? He asked me quietly in English during a break. They think you're young and naive. They're offering you a deal that benefits them significantly more than you. They're planning to use your distribution network, but keep the majority of the profits. They're treating you like a junior partner, when the deal should be 50-50. Miho's jaw tightened. Tell them I appreciate their offer, but I'd like to propose alternative terms. Then tell them exactly what a fair partnership would look like. I did. The Korean representatives looked surprised that Miho had seen through their strategy. There was a moment of tension where I thought they might walk away. Then the oldest one smiled. Mr. Kong, he said in Korean, which I translated, it seems we underestimated you. Perhaps we should discuss real terms. The negotiation shifted. They stopped treating Miho like a child and started treating him like an equal. By the end of the meeting, they'd hammered out a deal that was actually fair to both sides. After they left, Miho turned to me. That was exactly what I needed. You saw what they were doing before I did. That's my job. It's more than that. You understood the cultural context, the age dynamics, the way they were using language to create a power imbalance. That's not just translation. That's insight. He looked genuinely impressed, and something in his expression made my heart skip. It wasn't attraction, not exactly. It was recognition. He saw my value. Not as a waitress or a servant, but as a skilled professional who brought something important to the table. You did well today, he said. Really well. Thank you. We stood there for a moment, an awkward silence stretching between us. Then Miho cleared his throat. Dinner. We should discuss the upcoming meetings. There's a Korean restaurant I like, very authentic. Unless you have plans? No plans. Good. 7 o'clock. I'll have someone pick you up. It wasn't until I was in the car heading home that I realized he'd just asked me to dinner. Sort of. Maybe. It was business, obviously. But there was something in the way he'd asked that felt less like boss and employee and more like something else. I pushed the thought away. Kong Miho was a criminal. A dangerous man with a violent history. The fact that he was handsome and surprisingly insightful didn't change that. This was a job. A way to pay off debt and use my skills. Nothing more. But that evening, I found myself spending an extra 20 minutes getting ready. telling myself it was professional courtesy. That looking presentable was part of the job. The restaurant was small, family-owned, tucked into a neighborhood north of downtown. Miho was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance and exits. Old habits, I guessed. He stood when I approached.
Pulled out my chair.
Small gestures of courtesy that seemed at odds with the man who'd poured champagne on my head less than a week ago. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You're paying me $200,000 a year. Dinner meetings are included." He smiled. Actually smiled. Fair point. We ordered in Korean. Miho's pronunciation was rough, but understandable. The food was incredible. Real Korean comfort food, the kind you can't get at fancy fusion restaurants. "My mother used to make something similar," Miho said, gesturing at his bibimbap. "When I was a kid, before everything got complicated." "Tell me about her." He looked surprised by the question. "Why?" "Because I work for you now. I should know more about you than what's in police reports and news articles." He was quiet for a moment, considering. Then he started talking. His mother had died when he was 15. Cancer, just like mine. His father had been devastated, had thrown himself into building the business to cope with the grief. Miho had basically raised himself, learning the family business by watching, by listening, by becoming hard enough to survive in that world. "I never wanted this life," he admitted. "I wanted to be normal. Go to college. Maybe become a teacher or something boring and safe. But when my father died, the organization needed a leader. If I hadn't stepped up, everything he built would have collapsed. People depended on us. Families who'd been loyal for decades. I couldn't just walk away. So you stayed. I stayed. And I became what I needed to become to keep it all together." There was sadness in his voice. Regret. He wasn't a monster. He was a man who'd made difficult choices and was living with the consequences. "What about you?" he asked. "Why linguistics? Why Korean specifically?" I told him about falling in love with language structure in high school, about discovering Korean dramas and becoming fascinated with the language, about how learning Korean had opened up an entire culture and way of thinking that was completely different from my own. "Language is power," I said. "It's understanding. It's connection. When you speak someone's language, you see the world through their eyes. That's beautiful to me." Miho listened intently, his full attention focused on me in a way that was almost overwhelming. "You love it," he said. "The work. The language. You actually love it."
Ido.
"I can tell. You light up when you talk about it." We talked for 2 hours. About language, about culture, about family, about the weight of obligation and the cost of duty. And somewhere in that conversation something shifted. He wasn't just my boss. I wasn't just his employee. We were two people who understood what it meant to sacrifice for family, to carry burdens we never asked for. When he dropped me off at my apartment building that night, he walked me to the door.
"Thank you," he said.
"For today. For the help. For the conversation. It's my job."
"No."
"The translation is your job. The conversation was something else." He looked at me with those dark eyes, and for a moment I thought he might say something more. But instead, he just nodded. "Good night, Amelia." "Good night." I watched him walk back to his car, and I realized with a jolt of fear that I'd enjoyed tonight. Not just professionally, but personally. I'd liked talking to him. I'd liked the way he listened. I'd liked the brief glimpses of the person underneath the reputation. That was dangerous. Getting emotionally involved with your boss was always a bad idea. Getting emotionally involved with a mafia boss was potentially fatal. I went inside and transferred the $50,000 to pay off the largest of my mother's medical bills. Watched the balance drop on my account. Felt the weight lift slightly. This job was saving my life. I couldn't risk it by developing feelings for Kong Miho. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't stop replaying the conversation. The way he'd smiled. The sadness in his voice when he talked about his mother. The respect in his eyes when I'd explained the negotiation dynamics. I was in trouble. I just didn't know how much trouble yet. The next 3 weeks fell into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Almost. I'd arrive at the office by 9. Review the day's schedule with Jessica. Prepare for meetings by researching the companies and individuals Miho would be negotiating with. Sit in on video conferences with partners in Asia, translating not just words but intentions, catching the subtle shifts in tone that indicated hesitation or deception. I was good at it. Better than good. I caught things that would have cost Miho millions if missed. A clause buried in a contract that would have given a Chinese manufacturer control over distribution rights. A Tokyo investor whose enthusiasm was masking serious financial problems. A Seoul businessman whose compliments were actually veiled threats. Miho noticed. He started asking my opinion before accepting deals. Started including me in strategy sessions. Started trusting my judgment in ways that went beyond simple translation. And we kept having dinners. At first, they were always framed as business. Discussing upcoming negotiations. Reviewing cultural protocols. Planning approaches to difficult partners. But the conversations always drifted. We'd start talking about work and end up discussing everything else. Books we'd read. Places we wanted to travel. Childhood memories. Dreams we'd given up. I learned that Miho played piano. That he'd wanted to study music before his father died. That late at night, when the office was empty, he'd sometimes play on the old upright piano in the break room. Pieces by Chopin and Debussy that he'd taught himself from YouTube videos. He learned that I wrote poetry in Korean that I never showed anyone. That I'd spent 6 months in Seoul living with a host family, and those had been the happiest months of my life. That I dreamed of going back someday, not as a student but as someone who belonged. We were becoming friends. Or something more than friends. Something neither of us acknowledged directly. My mother noticed the change in me during our weekly phone calls. "You sound happier, Mija," she said. "This new job is good for you." "It pays well," I said, avoiding the real question. "It's not about the money. You sound alive again. Like you did before your father died. Before everything got hard." She was right. I felt alive.
Challenged. Valued. Seen.
And that scared me more than anything. David Choi noticed too. Miho's second in command watched me with increasing suspicion during meetings. He never said anything directly, but I caught his looks. The way he'd pull Miho aside after I left a room. The quiet conversations that stopped when I approached. One afternoon, David cornered me in the hallway outside the conference room. "You're doing good work," he said. His tone was neutral, but his eyes were cold. "Thank you. Just remember why you're here. You're an employee. A translator. Don't confuse your role with something more." The warning was clear.
Stay in your lane. Don't get ideas.
"I understand my role perfectly," I said.
Do you?
"Because Miho is starting to rely on you for more than translation. He's asking your opinion on decisions that affect the entire organization. That makes people nervous."
Why?
"Because we don't know you. You've been here 3 weeks. We've known each other for years, some of us decades. Loyalty matters in this business. Trust takes time. And you're moving too fast into his inner circle. I'm doing my job. You're doing more than your job. And that's the problem." David walked away, leaving me standing in the hallway with a knot in my stomach. He wasn't wrong. I was getting closer to Miho, and that was making me visible in ways I hadn't anticipated. The rest of the organization was watching, judging, waiting to see if I'd prove myself trustworthy, or if I was a threat. That night, Miho took me to a different restaurant. More upscale, more private. The kind of place where celebrities ate without being bothered because the staff knew how to be discreet. "Your quiet night," he said after we ordered. "David cornered me today. Gave me a warning about knowing my place." Miho's expression darkened. "What exactly did he say?" I repeated the conversation. Miho set down his chopsticks, his jaw tight. "David is protective. Sometimes too protective. I'll talk to him." "No," I said quickly. "Don't. He's not wrong. I am new. The others don't know if they can trust me. I need to earn that on my own, not because you intervene. You have earned it. You've proven yourself in every meeting. Professionally, maybe. But this isn't just a business, is it? It's a family. Your father built it that way. Those people have been loyal to your family for years. I'm the outsider who kicked you and somehow ended up sitting in strategy meetings 3 weeks later. I'd be suspicious of me too. Miho studied me for a long moment. You understand this world better than I thought. I understand people. And I understand that trust is earned slowly in organizations built on loyalty. So let me earn it. Don't protect me from the process. He nodded slowly. Okay. But if David crosses a line, you tell me.
Deal.
The food arrived and we ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Miho said something that changed everything. I need you to come with me to Seoul next week. I looked up, surprised. To Korea? There's a meeting with potential investors. Major players who want to partner on a real estate development project in Seattle. It's complicated, lots of legal and cultural nuance. I need you there to make sure nothing gets lost in translation. For how long? 5 days. Maybe a week if negotiations take longer. We'd leave Monday, stay at a hotel in Gangnam, meet with the investors Tuesday through Thursday. Then we could take a few days to explore the city before flying back. My heart was racing.
Seoul.
A week in Seoul with Miho. For work, obviously. But still. That's a big trip, I said carefully. It's important. These investors could fund development projects worth hundreds of millions. But they're traditional. They want to meet in person, establish relationship before committing. Your cultural insight would be invaluable. Okay, I said. I'll go. Miho smiled, genuine and warm. Good. I think you'll enjoy it. Seoul is incredible this time of year. What I didn't say was that I'd been dreaming of going back to Seoul since I left 3 years ago. That the city felt like home in a way Seattle never quite had. That the idea of returning, especially with someone who understood both cultures, made me happier than I wanted to admit. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Visa paperwork, even though I didn't need one for short stays. Travel arrangements. Briefings on the investors we'd be meeting. Research on Korean real estate law and development regulations. Jessica helped me pack, giving me advice on what to wear to Korean business meetings. Conservative but high quality, she said. These investors are old school. They'll judge you based on appearance. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. I don't exactly have a wardrobe full of expensive business suits. Miho's covering it. Company expense. He wants you to make a good impression. She took me shopping, and I tried not to feel uncomfortable as we spent thousands of dollars on clothes. Tailored suits, silk blouses, professional but elegant shoes. An entire wardrobe that made me look like I belonged in boardrooms instead of diners. You clean up nice, Jessica said with a smile as I looked at myself in the dressing room mirror. I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back looked confident, successful, powerful. Not the struggling waitress drowning in debt. Someone else entirely. The night before we left, my mother called.
Seoul, she said.
That's wonderful, Mija. You loved it there. It's just for work, Mom. Of course. Work. There was knowing amusement in her voice. This boss of yours, he treats you well? He does. And he's going with you? Just the two of you? There will be other staff. And the investors. It's not like that, Mom. Mom. I'm just saying, you sound happy when you talk about him. Happier than I've heard you in years. He's my boss.
He's also a man.
And you're a woman. And you're both going to one of the most romantic cities in Asia together. I'm just saying, stranger things have happened. It's work, I insisted. But even as I said it, I wondered if that was completely true. Monday morning, a car picked me up at 5 a.m. We drove to the airport where Miho was already waiting at the private aviation terminal. Private aviation terminal. Of course. The plane was small but luxurious. Leather seats, a conference table, a full galley. This wasn't flying commercial. This was how rich people traveled. Miho was already aboard, working on his laptop. He looked up when I entered and smiled. Ready for Seoul? Ready as I'll ever be. The flight was 14 hours. We worked for the first few hours, reviewing the investor profiles and negotiation strategy. Then Miho closed his laptop and suggested we watch a movie. We ended up watching a Korean drama on the plane's entertainment system. Miho made fun of the melodramatic plot while simultaneously being completely invested in whether the main characters would end up together. I caught him wiping his eyes during an emotional scene, and he glared at me. You saw nothing. Your secret is safe with me. We talked. About everything and nothing. About what I'd loved about Seoul when I studied there. About his childhood visits to Korea with his father. About food we wanted to eat and places we wanted to see. Somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, I fell asleep with my head against the window. When I woke up, there was a blanket over me that hadn't been there before. Miho was asleep in the seat across from me, his laptop still open on the table, his face relaxed in a way it never was when he was awake. He looked younger when he slept, less guarded, almost vulnerable. I wondered what it would be like to see that version of him more often. The version that existed underneath the reputation and the responsibility. We landed in Seoul late Tuesday afternoon local time. The city spread out beneath us as we descended, massive and modern and beautiful. My heart ached with something like homesickness for a place that wasn't really home. A car was waiting at the airport. We drove through evening traffic toward Gangnam, the wealthy district south of the Han River. The hotel was exactly what I expected. Luxury bordering on excessive. The kind of place where even the elevator buttons looked expensive. We had separate rooms on the same floor. Mine was bigger than my entire apartment in Seattle. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. A bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud. I stood at the window, looking out at Seoul's glittering skyline, and felt tears in my eyes. I was back. I was actually back. My phone buzzed with a text from Miho. Dinner in an hour? There's a place I want to show you. Perfect. The restaurant was in a quiet neighborhood away from the tourist areas. Traditional Korean architecture, low tables, cushions instead of chairs. The kind of place locals went to, not foreigners. Miho had changed into more casual clothes. Jeans and a simple black sweater. He looked different here, more relaxed. Like he fit. I come here every time I'm in Seoul, he said as we sat down. My father used to bring me when I was a kid. The owner's family has run this place for 3 generations. The food was incredible. Dishes my host family used to make. Flavors I'd been craving for 3 years. I may have actually moaned when I tasted the kimchi jjigae. Miho laughed. Good. This is heaven. We ate until we couldn't eat anymore. Then we walked through the neighborhood, no destination in mind. The streets were quieter here, away from the busy shopping districts. Old women selling vegetables from corner stands. Children playing in a small park. The smell of street food and car exhaust and life. I always feel more myself here, Miho said quietly. In Seattle, I'm Kong Miho, the criminal, the businessman, the heir to a complicated legacy. Here, I'm just Korean. Just one face in millions. Nobody knows who I am or what I do. It's freeing. I understand that. When I studied here, I felt the same way. Like I could be anyone. Like the weight of expectations didn't exist. We walked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Miho stopped at a small bridge over a stream that cut through the neighborhood. Thank you for coming, he said. I know this is more than what you signed up for. The job was supposed to be translation and cultural consulting, not international travel and late-night dinners and personal conversations. I don't mind.
Still,
I want you to know I appreciate it. You've made this work easier. Better. You've made everything better. The way he said it, the look in his eyes, made my breath catch. We were standing too close. The city lights reflected in the water below us. Seoul hummed with life all around us. This was the moment where something could happen, where the professional boundary could dissolve completely. Miho reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His hand lingered near my face. Amelia, he said softly. My phone rang, loud and jarring in the quiet moment. I jumped back, fumbling for it in my bag. Unknown number. Sorry, I should. Take it, Miho said, stepping back, the moment broken. I answered. Hello. Is this Amelia Oliver? A man's voice, Amelia Rican accent.
yes.
Who's this? My name is Agent James Morrison with the FBI. I need to speak with you about your employer, Kong Miho. I understand you're currently in Seoul with him. I'd like to meet with you before you return to Seattle. It's important. My blood went cold.
The FBI.
They were calling me about Miho. They knew we were in Seoul, which meant they'd been watching, which meant they'd been investigating, which meant everything was about to get very, very complicated. I don't understand, I said carefully, aware that Miho was watching me with concern. I think you do. Mr. Kang's organization is under federal investigation. We know you've been working for him. We know you've been present at meetings with international partners. We have some questions about what you've seen and heard. This is your chance to cooperate before things get worse. I need to think about this. You have 24 hours. After that, we'll assume you're choosing the wrong side. And that would be unfortunate for someone with your mother's medical situation. It would be a shame if certain complications arose with her insurance coverage. The threat was veiled but clear. Cooperate or face consequences. Not just for me, but for my mother. I'll call you back, I said and hung up. Miho was staring at me. What was that? Nothing. Wrong number. Amelia, don't lie to me. Your face went completely white. What happened? I looked at him. This man I'd been growing close to, this criminal boss who'd been nothing but good to me, and I realized I'd been lying to myself. This wasn't just a job. This wasn't just professional. I cared about him. And now I was being asked to choose between protecting him and protecting my mother. We should go back to the hotel, I said. We have the big meeting tomorrow. We should rest. Amelia.
Please.
I just need some time to think. He nodded slowly, but I could see the suspicion in his eyes. He knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what yet. We walked back to the hotel in silence. The magical moment on the bridge felt like it had happened years ago instead of minutes ago. Everything had changed with one phone call. In my room, I sat on the edge of the enormous bed and stared at my phone. The FBI was investigating Miho. They wanted me to inform on him. They were threatening my mother's medical care if I didn't cooperate. And tomorrow, I had to sit next to him in the most important meeting of his business career and pretend everything was fine. I'd made a deal with the devil, and now the devil's enemies wanted me to betray him. I thought about Miho's face on the bridge, the vulnerability in his eyes, the way he'd said my name. I thought about my mother, about her cancer, about the debt that was still crushing despite the money I'd paid off, about how easily the FBI could make her life impossible. I thought about the choice I'd made 3 weeks ago to work for Kang Miho, how I told myself it was just business.
Just a job.
Just a way to survive. But it had become so much more than that. And now I was trapped between two impossible options. Betray the man I was falling for, or risk everything I'd been fighting to protect. The city of Seoul glittered outside my window, beautiful and indifferent to my crisis. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat and stared at the lights and tried to figure out how to survive what was coming next. The meeting with the Korean investors started at 10 a.m. in a private conference room at their corporate headquarters in Gangnam. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of architecture that screamed money and power. There were 5 of them. Chairman Park Jin-soo, the lead investor, was in his 60s with silver hair and a suit that probably cost more than a car. The others were younger, vice presidents and directors, but they all deferred to Chairman Park with the kind of respect that comes from decades of established hierarchy. Miho had barely slept either. I could see it in the tension around his eyes, the way he held himself. He'd noticed my distance this morning at breakfast, the way I couldn't quite meet his gaze. But he was professional enough not to push. Not here.
Not now.
We sat across from the investors, me slightly behind Miho's right shoulder in the position of a trusted advisor. My job was to translate, to interpret, to catch the nuances that might make or break this deal. The discussion started with pleasantries.
Tea was served.
Small talk about the weather, about Seoul's development, about the similarities between Korean and Amelio-Rican business culture. Chairman Park spoke in formal, respectful Korean, the kind used with equals. Then they got down to business. The project was ambitious. A mixed-use development in downtown Seattle. Luxury condos, retail space, office buildings. The Korean investors would provide the capital, Miho's organization would handle the Ameliorecan side of development, permitting, construction management. If successful, it would be worth over $300 million. Chairman Park laid out the terms, the investment structure, the profit sharing, the timeline. Everything sounded reasonable, fair even. But I caught something in the way his vice president phrased a particular clause. A subtle shift in tone when discussing the management structure. They were planning to maintain controlling interest, not just financially, but operationally. Miho would be the local face, but all major decisions would require their approval. "Excuse me," I said quietly in Korean. "Chairman Park, could you clarify the management approval process outlined in Section 7? The room went silent. Chairman Park looked at me with mild surprise. Women didn't typically interrupt in traditional Korean business settings, especially not translators. But Miho had hired me to catch exactly this kind of thing. "Of course," Chairman Park said smoothly. "The approval process is standard. Major expenditures over a certain threshold require board approval. And the board would consist of 3 members from our organization, 2 from Mr. Kang's." I turned to Miho and switched to English. "They're structuring this so they maintain voting control on all major decisions. You'd be implementing their vision, not yours. It's not a partnership. It's them hiring you as a contractor with your own money on the line." Miho's expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten slightly. He turned to Chairman Park and spoke in his rough but understandable Korean. "Chairman Park, I respect your organization's experience and success. But this structure doesn't reflect a true partnership. I propose an equal board, 3 from each side, with major decisions requiring unanimous approval. That way we're genuinely collaborating." The mood in the room shifted. Chairman Park's pleasant expression cooled slightly. "Mr. Kong, you must understand that our investment comes with certain expectations. We've done projects like this successfully many times. Our structure has proven effective." "I'm sure it has," Miho said calmly. "But I'm not looking for investors who want to control my operations. I'm looking for partners who trust my expertise in the Ameliorecan market as much as I trust their financial backing." The negotiation went back and forth for 2 hours. I translated every word, every nuance, every subtle threat and counteroffer. Chairman Park's team was good, experienced, used to getting their way. But Miho held firm. Finally, Chairman Park called for a recess. "We need time to discuss this internally," he said. "Shall we reconvene tomorrow morning?" "Of course," Miho agreed. We left the building and got into the car. As soon as the doors closed, Miho let out a long breath. "That was brutal. You did well. You didn't fold. Because you caught what they were doing. I would have signed that deal and spent the next decade regretting it." He looked at me, and there was something in his expression that made my chest tight.
Trust.
Gratitude. Something more. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for having my back in there." The words felt like knives in my gut, because the FBI was asking me to do the exact opposite, to betray that trust, to use everything I was learning to help them build a case against him. My phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number. "Clock is ticking. Have you made your decision?" I turned off my phone. "Amelia," Miho said carefully, "something's wrong. You've been different since last night. What happened on that phone call?" "Nothing. I told you, wrong number." "Don't lie to me."
Please.
"If something's wrong, if you're in some kind of trouble, let me help." God, he was making this so much harder. If he'd been cruel, if he'd been the monster from the restaurant, this would be easier. But he was kind.
Concerned.
Genuine. "I just need some air," I said. "Can we walk for a bit?" We ended up at a park near the Han River. The water stretched wide and gray under cloudy skies. Joggers passed by. Couples walked hand in hand. Normal people living normal lives, unburdened by impossible choices. "When I was a kid," Miho said, "my mother would bring me here. We'd feed the ducks, even though you're not supposed to. She'd pack kimbap, and we'd have picnics. Those were the happiest days of my life.
Before she got sick.
Before everything got complicated." "What was she like?" "Kind. Too kind for the world my father built. She tried to shield me from it, from the reality of what our family did. She wanted me to be normal, to have friends and hobbies and dreams that didn't involve violence and money laundering. He picked up a small stone and tossed it into the water. When she died, something in my father died too. He became harder, more ruthless. And I learned that kindness was a liability in our world, that caring about people made you weak. You're not weak.
No.
But I'm also not kind. Not usually. I've done things, Amelia. Things I'm not proud of. Things that keep me up at night. I've hurt people. Threatened people. Crossed lines that can't be uncrossed. He turned to look at me directly. I need you to understand who I am. What I am. Because sometimes I think you see someone better than who I actually am, and I don't want you to be disappointed when you realize the truth. I know who you are.
Do you?
Do you know about the restaurant owner who tried to testify against me 3 years ago? How he suddenly changed his story after someone burned down his second location? Miho. Do you know about the journalist who was investigating my father? How she had a car accident that left her unable to work. How that accident happened the day before her story was supposed to run. His voice was hard now, forcing me to hear it, forcing me to understand. I'm not a good man, Amelia. I'm trying to be better, trying to legitimize the business, to move away from the old methods. But I'm still the person who did those things, who gave those orders. And if you're smart, you'll remember that. Why are you telling me this? Because you're getting close. Because I'm getting close. And I need you to understand what you'd be getting close to. We stood there by the river, the truth hanging between us like a wall.
He was right.
I'd been seeing what I wanted to see. The man who listened to my translations, who asked my opinion, who tucked a blanket over me on the plane. But that man was also capable of violence, of cruelty, of things I didn't want to imagine.
My phone buzzed again.
I ignored it. There's something I need to tell you, I said quietly. Miho went very still. What? This was it. The moment of truth. I could tell him about the FBI, about the investigation, about the choice I was being forced to make. We could face this together. Or I could lie. Protect him from the knowledge that I was being pressured to betray him. Figure out my own solution without dragging him into it. My phone rang. Loud and insistent. The same unknown number. You should probably answer that, Miho said, his voice tight. I answered. What? Miss Oliver. Agent Morrison's voice was cold. Your 24 hours are up. I need an answer. Are you going to cooperate with our investigation or not? I need more time. Time's up. We know you're at the Han River Park right now. We know you're with Kong. We've been monitoring you both since you landed in Seoul. We have surveillance photos, recorded conversations, documentation of every meeting you've attended. You're already implicated in his criminal enterprise just by association. My blood turned to ice. They'd been watching us, recording us. Everything we'd done, everywhere we'd gone, they'd been building a case not just against Miho, but against me too. I haven't done anything illegal, I said. That's debatable. But here's what's not debatable. Your mother's insurance claim for her latest treatment was flagged for review. Seems there might be some irregularities. These things can take months to resolve. Months where treatment gets delayed. Months where claims get denied. Unless, of course, you help us expedite the process by cooperating with our investigation. You're threatening my mother. I'm offering you a choice. Help us build a case against Kong, and your mother gets the care she needs without complications. Refuse, and well, bureaucracy can be very slow. Miho was watching me now, his expression dark. He couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he could read my face. I need to think about this, I said. You have until tomorrow morning. We want you to record your meetings with the Korean investors. We want documentation of any illegal activity, any money laundering discussions, any connections to organized crime. Your phone has been equipped with recording capability remotely. All you have to do is keep it on you during meetings. You hacked my phone? We secured it for investigative purposes. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. That's your deadline. After that, we move forward with or without you. And trust me, you want to be on the right side of this. He hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling like the world was collapsing around me. They'd hacked my phone. They'd been recording everything, which meant they'd heard our personal conversations, our dinners, the moment on the bridge last night. Everything. Amelia. Miho's voice was deadly quiet. Who was that? I can't.
Who was
That. I looked at him, and I saw the exact moment he figured it out. His expression went from concern to understanding to betrayal in the space of a heartbeat. They got to you, he said flatly. The feds. That's what the call last night was about. They're investigating me, and they want you to inform. Miho, please. How long have you known? Since last night. I swear I only found out last night. And you didn't tell me. You sat through breakfast this morning, sat through that entire negotiation, and you didn't say a word. I didn't know what to do. They're threatening my mother. They said they'd interfere with her medical care if I don't cooperate. So you were considering it.
betraying me?
Recording our meetings. Helping them build a case.
No.
I mean, I don't know. Miho, they hacked my phone. They've been recording us this whole time. They have everything. The look on his face was something I'll never forget. Not anger, though that was there too, but hurt. Deep, profound hurt. Like I'd reached into his chest and crushed something vital. I trusted you, he said quietly. I let you in. I told you things I've never told anyone. And the whole time, you were a potential informant. That's not fair. I didn't know they were investigating.
I didn't know any of this until last night.
But you didn't tell me. That's the point. You found out the feds were building a case against me, and your first instinct was to keep it secret. To protect yourself. To protect my mother.
And what about me?
What about the trust we've built? Doesn't that matter? Of course it matters. That's why I'm telling you now instead of just doing what they ask. We were both breathing hard, facing each other in the park while people walked by completely unaware of the crisis unfolding. Miho stepped back, and the physical distance felt like a chasm opening between us. I need to think, he said. I need to figure out what this means for the organization, for the deal, for everything. Miho, please. Don't. Just don't. I can't look at you right now. I can't think straight when you're standing there looking at me like that. Like what? Like you actually care. Like this wasn't always about the money and keeping yourself safe. The accusation stung, because part of it was true. I had taken the job for the money. I had been protecting myself, and my mother first. But somewhere along the way, it had become about more than that. I do care, I said quietly. That's the problem. I care about you, and I care about my mother, and I'm being forced to choose between you. And I hate it. I hate every second of this. Miho's expression softened slightly, but the wall was still there. Go back to the hotel, he said. I'll have someone else handle the translation tomorrow. You're firing me? I'm protecting my organization. I can't have a potential FBI informant sitting in on sensitive negotiations. You understand that, right? Yes, I whispered. I understand. I'll have Jessica arrange a flight back to Seattle for you. Tonight, if possible. Miho.
Please.
Just go. I walked away, each step feeling like I was leaving pieces of myself behind. When I looked back, he was standing alone by the river, staring out at the water, and he looked more alone than anyone I'd ever seen. Back at the hotel, I packed my things through tears. Everything had fallen apart in the space of one phone call. The job I loved. The man I was falling for. The fragile hope I'd built that maybe life could be good again. All gone. Jessica knocked on my door an hour later. There's a flight at 7 p.m., she said. Her voice was professional, but her eyes were sympathetic. Car will be here at 4 to take you to the airport. Thank you. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I liked you. You were good for him. Not good enough, apparently. She left, and I sat on the bed, staring at my packed suitcase, trying to figure out what came next. My phone buzzed. Agent Morrison. We know what happened at the park. Last chance, Ms. Oliver. Cooperate or face the consequences. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to betray Miho. Not for the FBI, not to protect my mother, not for anything. What we'd built, even if it was broken now, had been real. He'd trusted me.
He'd seen me.
And I wasn't going to destroy that by becoming exactly what he feared. But I also wasn't going to let them threaten my mother. I called Agent Morrison back. "I'll cooperate," I said. "But not the way you want. I'll tell you what I know about the legitimate business operations. The meetings I translated. The negotiations I was part of. All of it legal. All of it documentable. But I won't wear a wire. I won't record private conversations. And I won't help you manufacture a case by twisting legitimate business into something criminal. That's not good enough. It's all you're getting. Take it or leave it." There was a long pause. "We'll be in touch when you land in Seattle," he said, and hung up. I'd just chosen a side. Not fully on one or the other, but somewhere in the middle. Trying to protect everyone, and probably ending up protecting no one. The car came at 4. I took one last look at Seoul from the hotel window at the city I loved, and I felt my heart break. On the way to the airport, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from Miho.
"I'm sorry. For everything."
"You deserved better than this mess. Be safe." I stared at those words the entire flight home, and I cried somewhere over the Pacific Ocean where no one could see. The woman who'd kicked a Mafia boss and taken his job offer had been brave and reckless, and full of hope. The woman flying back to Seattle alone was none of those things. She was just broken. I landed in Seattle at 6 a.m. on Thursday, exhausted and hollow. The apartment I returned to felt smaller than I remembered, like the walls had closed in during my absence. There were 17 missed calls from my mother. I called her back. "Amelia, thank God. I've been so worried. Your insurance company called. They said there's been a problem with my treatment authorization. Something about eligibility review. They've postponed my next round of chemo until it's resolved." My hands started shaking. The FBI had made good on their threat. How long did they say? Could be weeks. Maybe longer. "Baby, I'm scared. The doctor said we can't delay treatment. If we wait too long..." "I'll fix it, Mom. I promise. I'll fix it." But I had no idea how. I spent the next 3 days trying. Called the insurance company a dozen times. Got transferred, put on hold, told the review was pending. Called Agent Morrison. He didn't answer. Left messages that went unreturned. They were making their point clear. Cooperate fully, or watch my mother suffer. On the 4th day, Jessica called. "Amelia, I'm calling as a friend, not as Miho's assistant. You need to know that David is pushing to have you dealt with."
"Dealt with?"
"He thinks you're a liability. He's convinced you're working with the FBI. He wants to make sure you can't testify against the organization." My blood went cold. "Make sure how?" "Use your imagination. Miho is holding him off, but David has support. Some of the old guard think eliminating the threat is the smart move." "I'm not a threat. I'm not cooperating with them. They don't know that. All they know is the FBI contacted you, and now you're back in Seattle. From their perspective, you look like an informant. What do I do? Disappear for a while. Get out of Seattle. Go somewhere they can't find you until this blows over." "I can't leave. My mother needs me." "Your mother needs you alive." She hung up. I sat in my apartment, paralyzed by fear. The FBI on one side, threatening my mother. Miho's organization on the other, potentially threatening me. And I was caught in the middle with no way out. That night, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw 2 men I didn't recognize. Large men, with the kind of posture that screamed violence. I didn't answer. They knocked again. Harder. "Amelia Oliver. We know you're in there. We just want to talk." I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911. But who would I say was threatening me? I worked for these people. I'd taken their money. I was part of their world now, whether I wanted to be or not. The men waited for 10 minutes, then left. But the message was clear. They knew where I lived. They could get to me whenever they wanted. I packed a bag and left through the fire escape. Stayed at a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city, paying cash, using a fake name. My mother called again. Her voice was weaker. "They're saying the delay might be months now, Mija. Something about fraud investigation on my account. I don't understand. I haven't done anything wrong. I know, Mom. It's not you. It's me. This is because of me. What are you talking about? I couldn't tell her. Couldn't explain that her daughter had gotten involved with criminals and federal agents, and now both sides were using her as leverage. I'm going to fix this, I said. I promise. But I was running out of options. On day 7, Agent Morrison finally called back. Ms. Oliver, I understand you've been trying to reach me. You know exactly why. My mother's treatment has been delayed. You did this. Bureaucratic complications happen. Could be resolved quickly, with the right cooperation. I told you what I'd give you. Legal business documentation. That's it. Not good enough. We need active cooperation. Recorded conversations. Testimony about the criminal operations. I don't have testimony about criminal operations. Everything I was involved in was legitimate business. We both know that's not true. Kang's organization is built on crime. You were in his inner circle. You must have seen something, heard something. I didn't. Then your mother's treatment will remain under review. Indefinitely. He hung up. I sat in that motel room and felt something break inside me. I tried to do the right thing. Tried to walk the line between protecting Miho and protecting my mother. And I'd failed at both. My mother was suffering. Miho thought I'd betrayed him. The organization wanted me dead. The FBI was threatening me. And I had nowhere left to turn. That night, I stood on the motel balcony and looked down at the parking lot 4 stories below. For the first time in my life, I understood why people gave up. Why the weight became too much. Why disappearing seemed easier than fighting.
My phone rang.
Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Amelia. It's me. Miho's voice. I hadn't heard it in a week, and it hit me like a physical blow. How did you get this number? I have resources. Amelia, I know about your mother. About the insurance delays. About the FBI's threats.
How?
Because I've been investigating what happened. Trying to understand. And I realized something.
You didn't betray me.
You could have. The FBI gave you every opportunity. But you didn't. Tears started streaming down my face. They're hurting my mother because I wouldn't fully cooperate. And your people want to hurt me because they think I did cooperate. I can't win. There's no right answer. I know.
And I'm sorry.
I should have protected you better. Should have seen this coming. It's not your fault. It is. I brought you into this world. I knew it was dangerous, and I did it anyway because I was selfish. Because I wanted you close. The admission hung between us. Miho. I'm going to fix this. The insurance situation. I have contacts, people who can expedite the review, make the problems disappear. Your mother will get her treatment. You can't. If you interfere, the FBI will know we're working together. They'll use it against both of us. I don't care. Your mother shouldn't suffer because of my world. This is on me. And your organization? David and the others who want me gone. I'm handling it. You're under my protection. Anyone who touches you answers to me personally. David is backing off. Why are you doing this? After everything? There was a long pause. Because I trust you. Because you chose not to betray me even when it cost you everything. Because... He stopped. Started again. Because you matter to me. More than is smart. More than is safe. But I can't change that. My heart was breaking and healing at the same time. I'm so sorry, I whispered. For not telling you immediately. For putting you at risk. You were protecting your mother. I understand that. Family comes first. Always. What happens now? Now you come back. To the office, to work, to where you belong. I'll handle the FBI. I'll handle my organization. You focus on being safe and doing your job. Just like that? Everything goes back to normal?
No.
Nothing about this is normal. But we figure it out together. If you want to. I want to. Then come back. Please. 2 days later, I walked back into Kong International Holdings. People stared. Whispered. I held my head high and went straight to Miho's office. He stood when I entered. We looked at each other across the desk, and something passed between us. Understanding. Forgiveness. Something more. Your mother's treatment was approved this morning, he said. Full coverage, no delays. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise you'll tell me next time someone threatens you. We face these things together. Together, I agreed. Jessica brought me up to speed on what I'd missed. The Seoul deal had gone through with modified terms. Miho had negotiated without me and gotten a fair partnership. Business was good. But the FBI investigation was ongoing. Agent Morrison had backed off the insurance threats, probably realizing they'd crossed a line, but they were still building a case. Still watching. We need to be careful, Miho said during a private meeting. Every conversation could be monitored. Every meeting could be surveillance. We operate as if we're always being watched. Because we are. Yes. Over the next few weeks, something shifted between us. The near loss had burned away the pretense. We stopped pretending this was just professional. Stopped pretending we didn't feel what we felt. He'd pick me up for work instead of sending a car. We'd have lunch in his office, talking about everything except business. He'd touch my hand when making a point. I'd lean closer than necessary when showing him documents. It was dangerous. Complicated. Probably stupid. But it was real. One evening, working late on a contract review, Miho stood and walked to the window. I'm trying to change, you know. The business, the methods, everything. Because of you. Because of me? You make me want to be better. The man you see when you look at me, that's who I want to actually be. Not the person who threatens and hurts and destroys. Someone worthy of how you look at me. I stood and walked over to him. I see who you really are, not who you were forced to become. And that person is worth everything. He turned to face me. We were inches apart. This is complicated, he said softly. I know. You work for me. The FBI is investigating me. My organization barely trusts you. This is potentially the worst idea either of us has ever had. Probably. But I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting. I kissed him. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was weeks of tension and fear and longing released all at once. His hands came up to cradle my face. My fingers tangled in his hair. We kissed like we were drowning and each other was air. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Miho pressed his forehead against mine. No going back from this, he whispered. I don't want to go back. Even knowing what it means? The danger, the complications, the impossible choices ahead. Especially knowing that. I choose this. I choose you. 3 months later, Agent Morrison made his move. Federal agents raided 3 of Miho's properties simultaneously. Seized computers, files, financial records. Arrested 4 of his associates on money laundering charges. Miho and I were at the office when it happened. David burst in, phone pressed to his ear. Face pale. They're hitting the warehouse in Tacoma. The nightclub downtown. The import office at the port. They have warrants for everything. Miho went very still. How bad? Bad. They're arresting people. Seizing evidence. This isn't a fishing expedition. They have specifics. Agent Morrison called my phone 5 minutes later. Ms. Oliver. Time to decide whose side you're really on. We're taking down Kang's organization today. You can cooperate now and walk away clean, or you can go down with him. Your choice. I looked at Miho. At the man I'd fallen in love with over late-night conversations and stolen moments. At the person who'd protected my mother when he didn't have to. Who trusted me when everyone told him not to. Who was trying to be better because of me. I'm not cooperating, I said clearly. Whatever case you're building it without me. Then you're complicit. We'll see you in court. He hung up. David was staring at me. You just chose us. Over the feds. Why? Because this is where I belong. Over the next 6 hours, we learned the extent of the investigation. The FBI had been building their case for 2 years, long before I ever met Miho. They had financial records, wiretaps, testimony from associates who'd flipped. But they didn't have the smoking gun they needed to take down Miho personally. Most of the criminal activity traced to his father's era or to associates acting independently. The legitimate business transformation Miho had been working on had actually insulated him from the worst charges. The lawyer, James Park, laid it out. They can hurt the organization, shut down some operations, put some people away, but they can't directly implicate you in anything major. Your father kept you away from the really illegal stuff, and you've been cleaning house since you took over. What about Amelia? Miho asked immediately. She's clean. Everything she was involved in was legitimate business. International negotiations, contract review, cultural consulting. All legal. All documentable. They were bluffing when they threatened her. Relief flooded through me. But Agent Morrison wasn't done. The trial for Miho's associates became a media circus. And during testimony, Morrison tried one last time to drag me in. Miss Oliver, he said when I was called as a witness. You worked closely with Mr. Kong. You were present at sensitive meetings. You must have seen evidence of criminal activity. I translated business negotiations, I said calmly. Real estate deals. Import partnerships. All legitimate. You expect us to believe you saw nothing suspicious in 3 months working for a known criminal organization? I expect you to prove your allegations with evidence, not assumptions. Everything I was involved in was legal. I have documentation for every meeting, every translation, every contract I reviewed. Would you like to see it? I'd prepared meticulously. Every piece of paper, every email, every recorded conversation that I'd been part of was documented and clearly legitimate. Morrison had nothing. The trial ended with 3 associates taking plea deals for minor charges. Miho walked away untouched. The organization was damaged, but intact. And I was finally, truly free. 6 months after the trial, Miho and I stood in the same Han River Park in Seoul where everything had fallen apart. But this time, we were different people. The organization had completed its transformation. Most operations were now fully legitimate. The criminal elements had been shut down or sold off. Miho was building something new, something his mother would have been proud of. My mother was in remission. Healthy. Thriving. She'd met Miho and, after an initial period of skepticism, had grown to love him almost as much as I did. I keep thinking about that first night, Miho said, holding my hand as we walked. When you kicked me at Romano's. Best worst moment of my life. Best worst? Best because it brought you into my life. Worst because, well, you kicked me in the balls in front of 73 people. I laughed. You deserved it. I absolutely did. I was arrogant. Full. Everything you said I was. And now I'm just a man in love with a woman who's way too good for him. He stopped walking and turned to face me. Amelia Oliver.
You kicked me.
Called me trash. Stood up to me when no one else would. You changed my entire life. Made me want to be better. Stood by me when you could have run. You're brave and brilliant, and everything I never knew I needed. He got down on one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Will you marry me? I stared at him, this man who'd started as an enemy and become my everything. This criminal turned businessman. This hurt person who'd learned to trust again because I'd shown him it was possible. Yes, I said through happy tears. Yes, absolutely yes. He stood and kissed me, and souls stretched out around us, full of light and life and possibility. We'd both been broken people who found each other in the worst possible way. But we'd chosen to heal together, to build something new, to prove that people can change, that love can grow in the darkest places, that courage sometimes looks like a waitress standing up to power. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it and smiled. A message from the video of me kicking Miho, which still circulated online occasionally. It had been viewed 50 million times now. People still called me a hero. A legend. But I wasn't a legend. I was just Amelia. A woman who'd been drowning in debt and fear, who'd taken a chance on an impossible job, who'd fallen in love with the most complicated man in the world. And I'd do it all again. What are you thinking?
Miho asked.
That I'm grateful. For all of it. Even the hard parts. because they led me here.
To you. To us. No regrets.
Not a single one. We walked along the river as the sun set over Seoul, two broken people who'd made each other whole, ready to face whatever came next together. And if you're watching this, listening to my story, I hope you take away something important. Stand up for yourself. Even when it's scary. Even when the odds are impossible. Even when the person you're standing up to seems untouchable. Because you never know what might happen when you refuse to stay silent. When you refuse to be small. When you choose courage over comfort. I kicked a mafia boss and found love. Found purpose. Found myself. Your story might look different, but I promise you, standing up is always worth it. So wherever you are, whatever you're facing, remember the waitress who refused to be invisible.
Be brave.
Be bold.
Be you.
And maybe, just maybe, kick someone in the balls if they deserve it. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. Drop a comment telling me what you thought. What would you have done in my situation? And remember, sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments. Sometimes the person who pours champagne on your head becomes the person you build a future with. Life is strange like that. Until next time, this is Amelia Kong, reminding you that courage is contagious and love is always worth fighting for.